Hello, I'm Superintendent Rashid, and if you're here with us today, it's probably because you're interested in a policing career with the Calgary Police Service. Unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 restrictions and the restrictions on social gatherings, we're not able to hold our regular recruiting information sessions where usually we'd be able to answer questions in and around the recruiting process with the CPS. With the help of our panel of experts from our recruiting unit, we're going to bring the information session to you wherever you are. I'd like to introduce Constables Andy Buck and Jonathan Crespo from our CPS recruiting unit. And today, they're going to talk about the minimum qualifications for becoming a sworn police officer with the Calgary Police Service. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
No problem. Perhaps, Andy, we can start off with some of the basic minimum requirements for prospective candidates or those considering a career with the Calgary Police Service.
The minimum standards are fairly limited, actually. You need to be at least 18 years of age. You need to be a Canadian citizen or a landed immigrant and to have been here for a minimum of 3 years. The reason for that is so that our security investigations team can come background and do those security checks. And you also need a minimum of a high school diploma.
What about candidates who are actually in high school, like they're in grade 12, about to graduate? Are they eligible to apply?
Not yet. You need to actually have your diploma in hand before submitting your application.
For candidates who have a diploma or equivalent from outside of Canada, are they still eligible to apply, and what processes do they need to adhere to ensure that the equivalent is recognized here?
Yeah, they're absolutely eligible to apply, but they would need to send their qualifications off to a body which will assess that qualification and give us an indication of what that relates to from a Canadian standpoint.
Understood. And is there any preference or any additional competitiveness given to somebody, Jonathan, that has post-secondary education?
Post-secondary education is more desirable than having your grade 12 diploma alone. Now, having post-secondary is not required. And with post-secondary, you also don't need to have your degree in criminology or anything policing related. It could be in anything you want. You wouldn't be awarded any extra points, but you would be a more competitive candidate than somebody that only has a grade 12.
Now, you talked earlier about requiring to have completed their grade 12 when they apply. Like, you can't be in grade 12 anticipating that you're going to graduate when you apply. Does the same exist for your age? So if you're 17, about to turn 18, are you able to apply before you turn the age of 18?
We appreciate the enthusiasm. Wait until you turn 18 and then press submit.
Are there any maximum ages? Is there an upper limit on candidates as far as their age goes that the service might consider hiring?
And this is a great question. Contrary to popular belief, there is no upper age limit. I came to Calgary, albeit with prior policing experience abroad. I was 43 when I came to Calgary. There's no upper age limit. We've had applicants who have been 50 years of age. Age is experience, and we like experience.
That's a great answer. And so to that end, is there any variation of the process for those officers that do have previous experience with another policing agency in Canada or elsewhere?
There's no difference in terms of what is required for your application package. The process is exactly the same. The testing standards are exactly the same.
Maybe Jonathan, you can talk a little bit about the time frame away from criminal activity. Detected or undetected, I think, was the vernacular that was used. What do you mean by that?
So it could be anything from theft, petty shoplifting, or drug use. You need to be 3 years clear. So whether the police found out about it and you've been investigated and or charged, or nobody found out, you're just using marijuana while it was still illegal and nobody knew about it. You need to be 3 years clear of that kind of activity.
And in the event, Jonathan, that you've been charged and or convicted, what is the process then before you're able to apply?
You would need to apply and get your pardon, and then include that pardon as part of your application to the Calgary Police Service. So the polygraph component is used to measure your honesty and integrity throughout the entire application process, because you can imagine being a police officer, having honesty and integrity is extremely important. So using the polygraph to verify your disclosures around criminal activity is important, because we need to know what kind of activity you have and have you been honest about it. For example, was there any cheating during the written exam or during the panel interview, that kind of thing.
We were talking a little bit about the change in the marijuana legislation. How does that factor into the criminality aspect or the polygraph, for example?
Yeah, there's a question on the personal disclosure form which talks about illegal drug use, and marijuana is listed there. As we're aware now, since October 2017, marijuana has now been legal. We would still like to know your history use of marijuana. It's interesting to note that despite its legality, there is zero tolerance by the Calgary Police Service for officers in a frontline position. So if you are taking marijuana from a medical perspective, we'd need to know about that, what the reasons are why you're taking marijuana. We wouldn't hold it against you in terms of an application if you're disclosing marijuana usage, but just be aware that you need to have your eyes open going into this process, that in the event of your success, there is zero tolerance from a frontline policing perspective.
But an applicant wouldn't be disqualified if they're using marijuana recreationally but purchasing from a licensed, accredited vendor.
Absolutely. It still needs to be lawful use, so purchasing from a legal vendor, absolutely.
Jonathan, are you able to tell prospective candidates about the vision, hearing, and the medical standards and clearances required to become an applicant with the CPS?
If you go on to the join.calgarypolice.ca, you'll find the documents that you need to bring to your audiologist and your ophthalmologist. You'll go through the hearing test and the vision test, and then that doctor will deem you either meeting the standard or not meeting the standard.
So that said, can you be an applicant if you wear, say, eyeglasses or you have a hearing aid, for example?
Yes, if you wear glasses or have a hearing aid, you can still apply. You still need to go through the hearing test and the vision test, and again, that doctor will determine if you meet the standard or not. But we certainly do have officers that do wear glasses and have hearing aids.
Andy, are there requirements for an applicant to have or be in possession of a driver's license before they can apply?
Yes, our role involves driving vehicles, so you would need to have a minimum of a Class 5 driver's license. We cannot accept graduated driver's licenses. If you have more than that, that's great, but it's not points scored, so there's no benefit. Recruit training involves quite a lot of driving, all sorts of vehicles, so we're always interested to know what your driving history is, what sort of vehicles you drive, what size, how many kilometers you drive, overall what your experience is. And you can only have a maximum of 5 demerit points.
And if you have an excess of those demerit points, you've had more than a couple of speeding tickets, are you able to take one of those courses to reduce the demerit points?
Yep, absolutely. There are defensive driving courses that you can take that will reduce your demerits. I think it might vary by course, but certainly a couple of demerit points can come off.
I know that during the application process, many police agencies favor a candidate who has a strong credit history. Can you explain what the Calgary Police Service's position on that is?
We will check your credit. It needs to be average or better. And the reason for that primarily is there's a lot of temptation in this job. For example, you may be sent to a sudden death, an elderly person who is at home alone, and you are searching for next of kin details, and suddenly you come across an envelope containing a large quantity of cash. We want to know that you're not going to be subject to that temptation. Also, the possibility of bribery or blackmail of a police officer can't be discounted. We need to know that you're not going to be in a position financially where you might succumb to that temptation.
So clearly, integrity and ethics are of significant importance to applicants considering a job at the CPS.
Absolutely, it's imperative right throughout the process.
That's fantastic. Is there anything further that Jonathan or Andy would like to add in regards to minimum qualifications for people considering a career with our service?
I would say bear in mind that those are minimum qualifications. You need to meet those minimum qualifications in order to submit an application. Anything that you have in excess of that minimum is going to potentially make you more competitive.
Understood. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Constable Buck and Crespo for joining us this morning and talking about the minimum qualifications required for somebody considering a position with the Calgary Police Service. Please don't forget to check out our website and our other videos for all things recruiting related. Thanks for tuning in.